The Mockingbird Mentality. Analysis of To Kill a Mockingbird and Social Injustice. Similarities for Scottsboro and Mockingbird. Similarity 1. The white man in court who were highly influenced by the ideas of inequality would always vote to the favor of their race, and therefore create a very racially unjust atmosphere in court. In both cases, Lee and Scottsboro, the jury is distinctively shown as being full of racist white males, which is one reason why both cases were voted against the black victims. Similarity 2. Both the lawyers for the defendants in To Kill a Mockingbird and the Scottsboro video were despised and hated by much of society because each lawyer defended a black man. Society probably thinks that by sending threats to these lawyers by mail, they will persuade the lawyers to back off and let the prosecutors win. Similarity 3. For both the Scottsboro case and the To Kill a Mockingbird Tom Robinson case, each of the girls blamed the African Americans of rape to save themselves from punishment. Mayella does this to save herself from her abusive father, while Victoria does this to save herself from jail time for riding the trains as a hobo. Similarity 4. In both the Scottsboro and Robinson case, the prosecutors, Mr. Gilmer and Thomas Knight, are racist. Their unjust opinions spur them to make racist comments in court and majorly influence the view of the African Americans from the all-white jury's perspective. Similarity 5. The victims, in both cases, Mayella Ewell and Victoria Price, are described as being the total opposite of the stereotypical Southern woman. Physically, they do not seem like they would have been easily dominated. Differences for Scottsboro and Mockingbird. Difference 1. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Tom's case isn't as popular as the Scottsboro Boys case, which received national attention. The Scottsboro Boys had help from all over the world and from organizations like the NAACP and Communist Party, while Tom Robinson had the help of only a few townspeople. In the Tom Robinson case, Atticus, Tom's lawyer, seems as if he truly cares for Tom and takes care of him. The Scottsboro Boys' lawyer, Samuel Leibowitz, defends them only because they are a national case and he wants to gain popularity for himself and his title. Difference 3. Tom Robinson and Mayella Ewell from To Kill a Mockingbird have a relationship prior to the case, with Tom helping Mayella during his daily trips to work. In the Scottsboro case, the 9 boys testify to never even knowing that Ruby and Victoria were on the train during the alleged rape. The suggested rape victims have 2 totally different reactions during their testimony. Mayella seems as if she is being pressured by someone to say directed comments because she cries as if her life is on the line. Victoria Price, from the Scottsboro case, attacks the opposing lawyer aggressively and parries each of his arguments with force and anger. Difference 5. In To Kill a Mockingbird, the suggested rape victim, Mayella, is described as being somewhat innocent and lonely. On the other hand, in the Scottsboro case, the girls Ruby and Victoria are described as already having past experiences with crime and prostitution. Similarities for Emmett Till and Mockingbird. Similarity 1. In To Kill a Mockingbird, it includes a famous quote by Franklin D. Roosevelt, who served as president from 1933 to 1945. So the story is in that time period. In the untold story of Emmett Till, Emmett was born in 1941, so both To Kill a Mockingbird and the people involved in the Emmett Till case were affected by the Great Depression. Similarity 2. In both cases, the African American side of the court case was either accused falsely or in an exaggerative manner. This seemed to be similarly related to their race. Similarity 3. Both cases occurred in the South, so therefore they were influenced by Southern social attitudes. This majorly influenced the turnout of the cases. Similarity 4. In both stories, the black people were treated so different and unequal that they couldn't touch a white person or sit with them. There was major segregation in both stories, and that was the overall focus of the court cases. Similarity 5. In both the Emmett Till case and Tom Robinson case, the African Americans were accused of deeds that they could not have done due to disabilities. Emmett had a speech impediment, so he could not have whistled at Mrs. Bryant, and Tom was crippled, which would have made it extremely hard to rape Mayella. Differences for Emmett Till and Mockingbird. Difference 1. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Tom was the defendant against the victim Mayella and her father, while in the Emmett Till court case, Emmett was the victim and his mother was trying to send his 2 killers to jail for the crime. The African Americans have opposite roles in each individual court case. Difference 2. Mayella testified in her court case that she was raped. In Emmett's court case, the charges against the defendants were not of rape, but rather murder. Rape of a white woman was a greater deal to the white society than the brutal murder of an African American boy. Difference 3. Mayella, the victim in the Tom Robinson case, was there to point out her offenders. Emmett, also a victim, was murdered, so therefore he was not able to be present at the trial of his offenders to point them out. If Emmett was there, the court case might have leaned in his favor. Difference 4. Tom, from To Kill a Mockingbird, was a young adult who already started a family. In the Untold story, Emmett was a teenager who had not settled down and still lived with his mother. This difference may have impacted society in a unique way for each case, as the public would have felt more pity for a child than a full-grown adult. Difference 5. Tom was known as a kind and respectful man who never caused any trouble. As a matter of fact, he went out of his way to help others. Emmett was known to be mischievous and had no sense of fear. Emmett's reputation might have affected the jury's opinion on his actions. Extra sources in Mockingbird. 1. In a pecking order hierarchy, a person dominates over another not only because of their differences, but also to maintain dominance and social power. The white Macon County finds a need to constantly degrade African Americans to become dominant. Mr. Ewell also accuses Tom of raping his daughter to raise his social ranking above Tom's. 2. In comparison with the structure of bullying, the bullies would be the Ewells, the victims would be the African Americans, the indifferent bystanders would be the Cunninghams, and the spectators would be the Finches and the neighbors, with an exception of Atticus. 3. The incident occurred in Alabama, and the book incident was also told to have happened in the state of Alabama. Alabama is known for a don't back down kind of mentality. The governor of Alabama, George Wallace, was also known for being a big supporter of segregation. Lee's motives. Why did Lee select certain parts of each case to create the Tom Robinson story? Lee made Tom Robinson, an African American male accused of raping a white girl, in this case Mayella Ewell, to give examples of social attitudes of the time. The South has an assumption, the evil assumption, that all African Americans lie, that all African Americans are basically immoral beings, that all African American men are not to be trusted around white women, an assumption one associates with minds of their caliber. Lee 204. What feelings or messages was Lee trying to convey to society by using these specific moments in her book? Lee was trying to convey a message of heroism. She explained subliminally in her book that even though standing up for what is right may cause some people to dislike it, while gaining personal respect and respect from the people you are helping. Atticus is a good example of this idea because he stands up for Tom because that's what he believes is morally right. And he sees that after the case is closed, all around Atticus in the balcony on the opposite wall, the African Americans were getting to their feet. Lee 211. Eliminated points. One major point that Lee eliminated in her book that was in the Scottsboro case is the fact that neither the boys or the girls knew each other. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Tom and Mayella have a relationship prior to the case where Tom assisted Mayella on a daily basis. Lee eliminates the absence of relationship to show the audience that at one point Mayella and Tom were equal, but just as quickly Mayella turns on Tom because of race. She wanted the audience to see that racial boundaries during the time could totally change a relationship between two people. Lee also left out the many supporters of the Scottsboro case in the Robbins case. She wanted to emphasize the struggle that many African Americans had in the South when trying to communicate their message of equality and prove their innocence of false accusations. Although the Scottsboro case did gain national recognition, there were many other court cases that were not ever even reviewed, and Lee wanted to show the evils that were still lurking behind the shadows of the South. What did Lee hope to accomplish when creating the Tom Robinson case? Lee wanted to show the world and make everyone realize what was happening in the South. Harper Lee's message to the world was that we have to change the prejudices and stand up for what is right. She also incorporated the idea of hurting the innocent into her book with the idea of the mockingbird. The people of the South were hurting the innocent mockingbirds who don't do nothing but sing their hearts out for us. Lee 90. Lee explained that the people who were affected by racism were innocent people who did nothing more than help others and live life. Harper Lee's goals and influences on society. Her expectations on how To Kill a Mockingbird would influence society and the actual impact of To Kill a Mockingbird during the 1960s and today. Individual responsibilities regarding social justice. Harper Lee believes that people have a responsibility to stand up for what they believe is morally right, no matter how many losses they face or how society pressures them. Lee talks to the reader through Atticus's lesson to Scout, in which Atticus teaches Scout that simply because we are lived 100 years before we start is no reason for us not to try to win. Lee 76. Lee tries to tell the readers to never give up. No matter how many battles are lost, each battle contributes towards our larger idea, a change in perspective. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus's determination affects the town's paradigm, and a jury that usually took a few minutes took the town a few hours. Lee 222. By fighting for his beliefs and countering society, Atticus caused people to look at the issue of racism in a different view. Fighting for moral justice can inspire others that are being discriminated to. Principles worth fighting for. Lee believes that the principles that are worth fighting for include racial equality and acceptance of individual differences. Harper Lee displays her thematic motives in her main protagonist. Scout faces pressures from society to become a proper Southern lady and is judged negatively for her creative, active imagination. Scout faces an angry society that pushes her to behave like the ladies that Scout is. Lee 151. Society's idea of a Southern lady is a woman that doesn't express their ideas or beliefs and stays within the social confinements of women at the time. Aunt Alexandra, in this case, represents a society that judges Scout just because of her personal differences. Social reactions, 1960s. The arguments Lee made in To Kill a Mockingbird were controversial at the time of publish, July 11, 1960. To many whites, this book was seeming less and said that they didn't pay any thought. Jane Clark, American Masters, Harper Lee, Hey Boo. Many did not react to the book till much later or didn't even read it. Others saw it as an outstanding piece of work, as what other writer during that time was willing to take on this object with the kind of honesty and integrity she did. American Masters, Harper Lee, Hey Boo. They sought out courageousness and saw the book as honest and profound. Although many ignored the book, others were motivated to join the fight for racial equality. Harper Lee's mark in today's society. Harper Lee's book was ingenious, and many of her opinions and values shall even apply to today's world. Take the Trayvon Martin case as an example. People believed that his killing was unfair and that his killers, Zimmerman and his wife, should be punished. Evidence was on the Zimmerman side, but that did not stop people from fighting for what they believed in, and that was the two killers were guilty. Eventually, through lots of work and pressure, Shelley Zimmerman, the wife of George Zimmerman, who was acquitted for second-degree murder in Trayvon Martin's death, pleaded guilty. Vivian, CNN. Lee's values, to stand up for what you believe in, worked for this trial and many other citations of the present day. A legacy without doubts. Harper Lee's arguments about social responsibilities have a great deal of truth, but unfortunately only to an extent. People should stand up for what they believe is morally right, but sometimes there are barriers. In most cases, society, they may not allow this to happen. Society may put pressure on people or put them in danger, as this has to be considered. Change in the fight for what is morally right has to be taken in past small steps.